G'day YouTube, Down to Bricks here, and here we go with the beast. Of course, we are looking at ANIO'S Venator-Class Star Destroyer, his UCS design made up of 5,416 pieces, and this thing is spectacular. I'm so excited to be bringing you guys this video. I'm so excited to have this part of my collection. I have always wanted a UCS style Venator. I've talked about it. People that have followed me for years know that I've talked about a UCS Venator a lot in the past, and I think if you actually go back to one of my very first videos of my UCS collection, I think I actually did talk about it in that video that I'd most want Lego to release a UCS Venator. So how did this come about? I actually started going through the process of getting the instructions and starting to look at bricklinking this build. And I actually had an offer from Vision Bricks, who had already collected up all of the parts and was ready to build it. I had an offer from him to actually buy the whole kit. And having spent quite a bit of time actually looking into the parts and the cost of some of the parts, I actually jumped at the opportunity just to buy all in one. It's a lot of work to try and bricklink this beast, so I was very happy just to buy the complete kit. Of course, I did run the risk of there may have been mistakes in the kit and certain parts that might have been correct or missing parts, and I did have a little bit of that, but it wasn't too bad, and I'll touch on that a little bit later in the video. So I can already hear you asking, so how much was it? Look, I'm not going to tell you how much I did pay for it, but let's just say it is not cheap. It's a very expensive set to piece together. There's a lot of rare elements in the build, and again, we're going to get into that more later in this review. And I mean, it is over 5,000 pieces, so right there, you know it's not going to be cheap. What I will tell you is I did pay more than the current UCS Millennium Falcon. So how do you go about obtaining the instructions and the part list? Well, I've got a link down in the description, so click on that. It'll take you to a Eurobricks page, and there is an email. So you send off an email, and then you will get a reply email with all the information on how you go about purchasing the instructions and the part list for yourself. And how much do they cost? Well, when I went through it, it was very cheap. It's only €5. He does say, you know, if you want to offer more, and I do encourage that because these guys have put in a hell of a lot of work to produce this set. So flick them a few extra bucks. But all in all, it is very, very reasonable to get the instructions. And that just leads me on to something I just want to mention very quickly, that this is 100% Lego. This is not Leppen, and I'm not going to tolerate anyone that's going to hassle me in the comments that this is Leppen and Leppen do this and Leppen do that, because you know what? I do not care about Leppen. I don't purchase Leppen. I don't support Leppen, and I won't encourage that in my comments. Any mention of Leppen in the comments will be deleted. So now I've triggered the trolls, let's move on. So my plan for this review is really just to give you some eye candy, because there's so much goodness to see in this build. So I'm just going to show different angles of this ship, and I'm just going to talk through my build experience, a little bit about parts that have been swapped out, and things that I'm going to change up a little bit in the future. And then to finish off, I'm actually going to, something that I really don't want to do is, once you get it all together, you don't want to be pulling things apart again, but I'm actually going to remove some of the top panels, and I'm going to show you the guts of the build, because it's really, really impressive to see the design of the core structure of this Venator. And I also want to show you how the magnet elements are used to attach the bottom panel. So And one of the most expensive part of this build is actually getting those magnets together. So I'm thinking that if I show that and show how it all works, that you might actually, if you're interested in putting it together yourself, you might actually be able to use this footage to look closely at the internal build and maybe come up with a way of attaching that bottom panel without using the magnets. It can definitely be done, and that may save you a little bit of money. But let's go on with that eye candy. First up, let's just take a look at all the greebling. There is not one exposed stud down the side here. It is all completely covered. Really is amazing. So much detail. I'll just take this opportunity now to ask, if you enjoy what you're seeing, please give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that, and hit the subscribe button because I've got stacks more to show you guys. Just having a bit closer look at this greebling. The first element I want to talk about is this antenna piece, and if I can just take one off and show you this piece here. So this is a swap out piece. They're actually supposed to be light bluish grey on the base and light bluish grey on the antenna piece as well. That's a very expensive piece, and we do use a lot of these in this build. And to get the light bluish grey ones, they're like $2 or $3 each, and as you can see along there, there is a lot of them used. So it's actually an element that I don't mind was swapped out at all. I can completely understand why you do that, and I don't think it actually takes anything away from the build whatsoever. So let's get you in underneath for a look, which isn't easy to do, but there's a lot of great detail just underneath the build, as you can see. And I'll just give a quick shout out to all the people that have messaged me in the past about taking on this build and the information they've shared. I really appreciate that. It's definitely an exciting build. So some great detail. One thing that was suggested to me is to lift it up a little bit on the stand, just so you're able to see underneath on display a little bit better. So I am looking at ways that I can do that. I'm thinking probably the best way, because basically all the weight is sitting on these 4 Technic beams here that obviously go up into the guts of the build, and we will see that later. I'm thinking possibly the easiest way, and I've just chucked a quick one together, is make a couple of shoes like this. Let me come back a little bit more, and actually, because this is nice and solid in the center here, and just put it up on these shoes and just lift it up a little bit. So I'm thinking about doing that. I'm not too sure. I'm gonna have a look while I've got the panel off whether there's a better way of attaching more Technic beams. Any thoughts you might have, let me know. I'd appreciate that. One of the things I was really impressed with this build was the list of elements. So if you compare it to something like the UCS Millennium Falcon, which is over 7,000 pieces, yes, they both have a lot of greebling, but I felt the Falcon had more greebling or more small pieces than this build here. I just was really impressed with the number of large elements. There is virtually every size of plate you can think of. Like, just take, for example, a 2x16 plate. There's over 100 of those, but all of the 4 wide plates, the 6 wide plates, there's just so much that goes into this build. The Technic beams, wait till you see the guts of this. The Technic beams was very impressive. So one of the things I really love about this is the insignia, which is all brick built. You build a little bay, then you build the insignia, and that just drops in there. Great way to do that. just to talk about some of the elements I had problem with the kit that I purchased. So I ran out of 4x12 plates in LBG, so I had to be a little bit ingenious there. Some are used, these panels here in some sections are 3 plates deep, so when they're used underneath, I actually used some 2x12 plates, and I actually had to use some different colors too because I didn't have enough just in light bluish grey, but it's all underneath, so it doesn't really matter. And that's, like I said at the start of the video, ways you can save money is probably just using different colored elements in the internal of the build. One thing I was missing entirely is, if I just take this off, and it's going to take the other wedge plate off as well, but this 3 long wedge plate, I think it was right side, so I had 2 lefts but I had no right, so I did have to order them. Not a real common piece. I actually had every other type of wedge plate in dark red except the 3 long, so that it's actually pulled the 4 long off as well, but this piece here, so there was only one seller in Australia that actually had those, so I had to do a quick order. I actually got them to express them up so I could get this video out for you guys. One of the other piece that was missing, if I just take a tile off here, you can see this black piece here, and that is 2 of these hinge pieces, or these angled pieces here, and they are supposed to be in dark red, so when you put the tile on you don't really see it. I was going to use light grey ones, which I didn't have, but I did have some black ones, so I've put those in. Now there's actually 2 styles here for this element. I think this might be an old one here. It's got the square edge, and the newer ones have a rounded edge. I think that is the difference. So you can't get the newer rounded edge style one in the dark red, but you can in the old style. So I have ordered those, but I did have to get them from overseas, so that's going to be a part that I will swap out at a later date. And just to point out on the nose here, I do have some of the all LBG antennas here, so I actually had a few of those in my collection, so I've just used 2 on the very front, but as you can see I don't think it really matters between using the ones with the grey or the black. Taking a closer look at the bridge, this is made up of lots of different pieces to get all of these angles. So this piece here is actually attached to this wing section. This panel here, this whole block here, is actually a separate piece, and this whole section here is actually one big block, and it actually, once you take all these panels off, you can actually lift that off completely. It's a completely separate structure, and you would have seen that getting put together in my speed build. Okay, I have to say my favorite angle of this ship is definitely from the back. I just love these engines. I love the design. I just think it looks absolutely fantastic. And as a Star Wars Lego fan, if that doesn't get you excited, nothing will. And while we're taking a look from the side here, I'll just talk about the last element, and it is these 4 long bars. So as you can see, there's 2 here in the old dark grey, and there's several around the engine here. Now I have a old dark grey one on top here, but then there's black on the side. Now to get these 4 long bars in dark bluish grey, they're actually quite expensive. It's actually a part I've never really thought about too much before, and I was very surprised to see how much they are going for. So I can understand why the original guy did purchase the black ones to use here. Now he did have some in the dark grey that I used up here, and I actually had some dark grey rigid hose that I cut up for this piece, and because this piece actually goes on right in the beginning of the build right near the start, and I cut those up and put those on at that stage. Later on found out that I was going to need a lot more around here, and I was only left with black ones. So what I've gone and done, I've actually ordered, instead of ordering the 4 long bars in dark bluish grey, I've actually ordered some rigid hose in dark bluish grey, and I'm just going to cut up my own 4 long bars, and I'm going to replace all of the dark grey ones and these black ones with the dark bluish grey rigid hose. Just while we take a zoom around the Venator, I'll just talk about my overall build experience with the instructions. So being online instructions, I actually had a little bit of trouble telling the difference between the lengths of plates. So normally with printed instructions, I'm normally pretty good at just having a look at the instructions and just sort of pretty much knowing the length of the plate. I did find I was doing a lot of stud counting. It could just be that there was so many different types, well, every type of plate basically. You had 4 long, 6 long, 8 long, 10 long, 12 long, 14 long, 16 long. So you really had to take your time to make sure you're using the right element and not making a mistake. Could just be me with that. I'm not used to building from online instructions or looking on a laptop. I much prefer printed instructions, but I do have to say the quality of the instructions was superb. The build time was actually the same for me as building the UCS Millennium Falcon. Took me 24 hours. I couldn't actually do really long build sessions with this one. It has a little bit to do with circumstance. I was looking after Mini Dub as well, so I was spending a bit of time with him, so I was doing some short build sessions with this one. With the Falcon I did 2 4-hour sessions and 2 8-hour sessions, but I definitely could not do an 8-hour session with this build. I think it's probably just was the eye strain from looking at a monitor, reading the instructions from a monitor. So I think the longest build session I did was a little over 4 hours, but most of them were sort of 2 to 3 hours. Okay, so now it's time to remove a panel and have a look at the internal structure. Just before we do that, I just want to show these turrets. You can rotate them. Now the first thing you do is remove this center panel here, and then you can pretty much just lift off this whole panel. Now I did have a little bit of trouble with this side panel just here, and what I actually found, it was easier to actually just remove it. So I'm just going to gently remove that, and that just attaches to this wing panel. And I actually had a little bit of trouble just hitting on this stud here, and it actually sits in underneath it. So I just found it was hitting on that, and it was just easier to take it off and then put it back on once you had the wing in place. Now we just lift this over a little bit, and it should just lift straight off, and it is hitting on there. It's just going to take a little bit of maneuvering. It's just touching on there a little bit. I just need to get it over. Oh, here we go. There it comes. So it's a little bit of a tight fit, and there we go. There is this whole panel, and if I just flip it over, we've got this Technic piece here, and there is another one. Just trying to show you here. Where is it? There it is. And they just have 2 sections here that they just slot straight down into. So I find when you put on, it's easier to have them straight out rather than angled down. And now we can really see, I mean, just have a look at all of these Technic beams. It's just a big thick core of Technic beams running from the front right through to the back. And again, you can get more of appreciation for this in my speed build. So if you miss that, I'll put a card up and you can go and check that out and actually see this whole thing coming together. But I really wanted to show this bottom panel here and how it uses the magnets to attach. So starting at the back of the wing panel, we have 3 magnets that are kind of suspended down here that holds up the inner side of the wing panel, and we have one in the back corner. I think overall it's the easiest way of doing it to keep that angle of the wing, but I'm sure there would be other ways that you could actually achieve the same thing. So moving to the front of the wing, you can see we have 5 magnets here that just hold up this whole front section. So there's nothing on the inside of the panel, because basically the strength of those magnets is enough to hold that whole wing panel up. Now, so you can see, because they're expensive part, you know, we have the magnet holder, we have the cradle, and then 2 magnets here. So there's 9 of those per side, so it's a quite expensive exercise. Holy dooly, there we go with ANIO'S UCS Venator-Class destroyer. I said it was a beast, and it is at that, isn't it? What a magnificent build. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. Before I wrap it up, I just want to show that you do get the design for the sticker sheet when you buy the instructions as well, and I did get a printed sticker, so you don't obviously get the printed sticker, you do get the design for it though, so you can get one printed up yourself. So I have got that. I'm probably not going to put it on the plaque though, because you guys know how much trouble I have with stickers. I live in a tropical climate and it just really doesn't agree with stickers. Because we had so much to get through with this build, I don't have time to do a comparison for you guys today. I am planning to do another video, so you know what that means. Stay tuned for a Venator face-off. That's going to be one fun video. So if you didn't do it already, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.